Welcome to Texas Heart Institute podcast on living legends and luminaries in endovascular medicine. I'm Zvonimir Krajcer. I'm an interventional cardiologist at Texas Heart Institute and Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center in Houston. Our guest today is Marvin Woodall, and Marv is a dear friend of mine. We have known each other for over 3 decades. And I can say that the first information that I received from Marvin Woodall is a plaque of getting permission to use Palmar-Shat stent and Palmar-Stat for vascular use and for coronary use. I still own that plaque in my office. But also, I remember meeting Marv for the first time, and that was in Florida at Turnberry Isle, where we had a meeting related to challenges and complications and how to avoid complications in endovascular interventions. And Marv was my partner playing tennis in a tournament, and we as a team won that tournament. So I'm very proud of knowing you not only professionally but also socially. And we have been together on many, many occasions and involved also in many different activities that we will hear a little bit more in detail throughout today's podcast. Marv is a native of Houston, and I believe he was born and in his childhood lived in Heights. And Marv, can you mention a little bit about your time in Houston, if you don't mind?
Oh, I'm happy to. Houston was obviously my birthplace, and my heart is always there. I was born so I'll give you the year, 1937, and I was born at St. Joseph's Hospital there and grew up there. And one of the fun things I like to tell people that my first 6 years of education was at Harvard. And they say, what? And I said, yeah, Harvard Elementary School. It was on Harvard Street in the Heights in Houston. And that's true. It was my first 6 years at Harvard. So I love Houston. I take a lot of joy out of understanding how that town thought bigger than anybody could ever think. Like, for example, I love the fact that they built a ship channel for 50 miles inland and became a great port. I mean, I was fascinated by that. I love the fact that because they have such terrible humid weather, they built an air-conditioned baseball park, the Astrodome. I was fascinated by the incredible growth of the Texas Medical Center. I remember when it was just a couple of hospitals out there. It was Ben Taub Hospital, Herman Hospital. You think Methodist was there. My daughter was born in Methodist Hospital. And so my heart is always there in Houston, and I'm always thinking of it. It's a very positive experience.
Very, very good. Marv, tell us, how did you get involved in the medical field? What was the beginning like, and where?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I was I'm a graduate at University of Oklahoma, and right out of school, I got a job with Procter & Gamble as a field sales representative. And I grew bored with it, frankly, after some couple of years. So I answered an ad on a Sunday paper for Johnson & Johnson looking for a sales rep. And I was living in Lubbock, Texas at this time. And so I went over and applied for the job. The guy said, no, I really don't have anything for you. But I was so interested in J&J, and I'd read about it. Of course, it was a tremendous company. And I kept hounding him. Finally, he gave me a job and moved me to San Antonio, Texas to start off. And then I was moved to Houston and had the great opportunity to meet, the likes of you, the likes of Michael DeBakey, the likes of Denton Cooley. And that really is, driven me from there on, thereafter.
So the first time I met you, you were the president of Johnson & Johnson, which is one of the biggest medical companies in the world. Can you tell me about climbing the corporate ladder. How cumbersome was it? What was unique about it? Because very, very few individuals have an opportunity to get that high in relatively short period of time.
Yeah. Well, it was just a matter of different stages, frankly. In the 37 years I spent at J&J, I had 19 different jobs, assignments, and moved 14 times to different places in the United States and headquarters and to Belgium, and etc. So every time was an increase in responsibility, and I loved it, and I just cherish everything I was able to do, and the company was very, very good to me and my family, and we were able to achieve some really incredible things. And you know, just to be very specific, I was the president of Johnson & Johnson's interventional systems company. Not, I wasn't the president of all of J&J. And we were the team that put together the very first and important balloon-expandable stent, of course, and that was really a highlight, and certainly in the field of cardiology and vascular surgery.
Well, let's hear a little bit more about that, because, of course, this is really what moved the endovascular field rapidly forward. And our last luminary for this podcast was Julio Palmaz, that you know very well. So tell me a little bit about meeting Julio Palmaz and working with him and Richard Schatz on Palmaz and Palmaz-Schatz stent, and what did you see as far as this product and those two gentlemen are concerned that really stimulated you to bring it to the clinical practice? And this is one of the revolutionary things that has happened in the endovascular field.
Mm-hmm. You know what? The major appeal for me with the concept was the simplicity of it. I mean, here was a clinical problem that was widespread, and atherosclerotic disease was widespread, and the attempt to increase lumen size of an artery to allow better, more increased blood flow was solved somewhat with balloon angioplasty, and we thank Andreas Grunzig, Dr. Grunzig, for that creation. But of course, it didn't work all the time. It worked about half the time, and so it really didn't solve the problem. But when Dr. Palmaz came to us with this idea that there was a way to put a scaffold in there of some kind, it was called a balloon-expandable graft at that time, in fact. And they put together a little organization themselves, and so we signed up for a contract to try to develop it with them, which was extensive and very clearly well-defined about what we had to do and in what time frame we had to do it. And so it worked out well. We had a nice, good team of people in Warren, New Jersey, a little laboratory up there. A lot of people referred to this kind of thing as a skunk works. In other words, we didn't have a sign on the door. It was just it was almost secretive, I guess. But anyway, we worked very carefully with both with Julio, Dr. Palmaz, and with Richard Schatz, and all many steps along the way, and in terms of design, material selection, and then we had to do so much work to convince the FDA about the long-term viability of such an implant, because once you implant a stent, it's there. You don't go retrieve it. And so that was a lot of the work that we did there, and then also we later certainly got involved, and I believe we were the first group to actually sponsor a randomized controlled trial in the medical device field. And that trial, there were two trials, one in the United States called STRESS, and one in Europe called Benestent, and they're headed by Marty Leon here in the U.S. and headed by Patrick's Rice in Belgium. And that was the real difference, and I got published in the New England Journal of Medicine about the same time that the FDA finally approved stents, and from there on, it was just a great joy to help train physicians around the world, which also was one of the most important things that happened was I think was the creation of the International Society of Endovascular specialists at that time, and which helped train people around the world and was played a major role in the success.
So going back to Palma's and Palmer-Schatz's stent, those are two different projects because Palma's stent was designed for peripheral vascular use. It was larger in profile, and then Palmer-Schatz's stent is designed exclusively for coronary interventions. So, and they were approved at the different stages, right? Not both of them were not approved at the same time, but right, which was a great contribution from Johnson & Johnson and Palmer's and Palmer-Schatz to be able to do that. But it took a little bit of time. It was, like you mentioned, an arduous process. It took a while to convince the FDA to receive this approval.
And we had to be sure, Material selection was really a key question early on. What are we going to make this out of? And how do we know what this material is going to be, and how will the human body deal with it for the rest of their lifetime? So, curiously, people may not know this, but the way we elected the first material was on the basis of Ethicon suture, sternal wire suture. It's made out of the same material.
Interesting.
So we knew that sternal wires had been in place for many, many years, and the body was happy with their sternal wires, and so it looked like, let's use that same 316L stainless steel, and that's how we got the very first one developed. And there, of course, there have been multiple other new materials since then, but that was the basis.
Interestingly enough, as I mentioned, we interviewed also Frank Veith for one of the podcasts, and I asked Frank specifically. He was involved with Juan Parodi and also Claudio Schoenholz in doing the first stent graft EVAR procedure, or endoluminal abdominal aortic aneurysm repair, with stent graft in United States. But at that time, this product was not approved in United States. And so the story goes that they approached you, or actually Frank approached you at Johnson & Johnson Interventional, whether this can be used for a live demonstration case, which they were going to do during one of the Veith symposiums. You might want to elaborate a little bit about it, but that was really an uncomfortable situation for you because you wanted to protect the interest of the company and also not to go against the FDA as far as the process of approval is concerned. So can you comment a little bit about that particular experience?
Yeah. Real basic was Frank, Veith and I would communicate over the phone, and then we knew we needed to meet face to face, so where were we going to meet halfway? So it was halfway geographically to meet at Newark Airport at the Priscilla's restaurant in the Marriott. So he would drive out from New York, and I would drive up from Warren, New Jersey. It was about halfway. And we hammered things out in Priscilla's restaurant. Not too many people know that.
Right.
And yes, and of course we were happy to work with Dr. Parodi. I actually took a whole team down to Buenos Aires to work with the details and with him there. And we just never could get it off the ground. Okay, there were a lot of things that we tried to get done, and it just didn't happen. And so obviously other companies picked up the concept, and it moved along nicely, but it was just we were so focused on coronary stents and peripheral stents that we just couldn't get it going. So anyway, and I guess you know the story, Dr. Parodi and Pope Francis. You know the story?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting as of this time right now. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So interestingly enough, your other areas of interest other than devices and bringing devices to the clinical use is education. And you have been very, very actively involved in this field with, like you mentioned, International Society of Endovascular Specialists, and also with CRF that has been organizing meetings like TCT and many other ones, actually worldwide. But let's talk a little bit about Ted Dietrich, who was the founder of International Society of Endovascular Specialists, and your relationship with Ted Dietrich.
Okay. I met Ted Dietrich right outside the operating room of Dr. Michael DeBakey one day in Houston. I was the sales rep for J&J at that time in Houston. And he just had come out of a case, and we shook hands. And actually, the nurse handed him a big fat billfold, which was his. And I said, "Oh my goodness, that looks like you're doing okay." And he said, "Yeah, I guess I am." And so we went on from there, of course, and we became close friends and colleagues over the years after he left Houston and then went to Arizona and opened up Arizona Heart Institute. And he used to run the phenomenal meetings there that were the best in the world. I mean, people from all around the world came for those meetings to learn new techniques, and worked with him on a lot of development of new stents over the time, both mainly peripheral vessels. And I still miss him. He was a guy that had a tremendous impact on me and encouraged me in a lot of ways and things. And I miss Ted. He's a terrific guy and did so much for so many people.
We all miss him, and we work together, you and me, with Ted on many different projects, congresses, and ISCVS meetings all over the world. And we're all thankful to you for your support of the International Society of Endovascular Specialists. He was a special individual, extremely ambitious, hardworking, intelligent, one of the best showmen that I have seen in the medical profession.
Great fun, great sense of humor, very creative guy.
Right.
Very, very creative.
Tell me about another project that you had as far as education is concerned, and this is working with CRF. Tell me a little bit about that, because a lot of people might not know how much you were involved with it, and you continue to be involved with CRF.
I'm still on their board. Yeah. Like from a peripheral standpoint, we needed ISCVS to get started, but from a coronary standpoint, I really needed a similar organization to train cardiologists primarily. So I helped fund the very first Cardiovascular Research Foundation facility, which was at the Washington Hospital Center in Washington, D.C. Working there primarily with Dr. Marty Leon, and all the other great folks there who are still around today. And I was able to get, actually, J&J provided a grant at that time. I think it was around $2 million to build a training facility there. And that was sort of the birthing, if you will, of CRF. And then later CRF moved to New York to one hospital, and then wound up today, of course, they're all headquartered or associated with Columbia University Hospital. And during that period of time, about halfway through there, actually I was at a meeting in Houston. It was Richard Smalling's meeting, I think it was. And I was approached by Greg Stone, who was involved with the CRF, from me. He said, "Marv, would you mind being the president of CRF or the CEO for us for a while, until we find somebody else? I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, maybe 6 weeks or something. Well, 3.5 years later, of course, we found somebody else. And that organization continues to thrive, doing very well, as you said earlier, expanding around the world today. And it's a really, really important factor in physician education throughout the world. So,
Well, it's absolutely amazing when we talked about all the things that you were involved with, and you continue to do those things. And we greatly appreciate all of your efforts in the field of developing products, bringing them to fruition, and also getting involved in education. But so, what is your latest project? I know that you're not giving up on those type of activities. So, what have you done for the last few years, and what is going on with research?
Well, technically, I retired in 2000. Okay, that was 25 years ago. I've never had such a busy last 25 years of my life. My dear sweet wife, who we celebrate our 65th wedding anniversary in July coming up, says, now, honey, I don't know anything you've ever failed at except retirement. You're a terrible, miserable retiree. You're just not doing it. And she's right, and I never will, because it's too much fun and too much joy associated with it. So by total serendipity, one Saturday morning, I was at an ISEBS sponsored meeting in the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia in November about, I think about 2017, I think it was. And I sat next to a physician I did not know, he did not know me. At a coffee break, we started talking, and it turns out he was really interested in a new device that he had in mind to treat pulmonary embolism, which is like the third leading cause of cardiac death following MI and stroke. And it's also, data says it's one of the leading causes of in-hospital death is PE. And of course, it's a big problem around the world. And so I decided once we there was a way we could help him achieve that. And I pulled in an engineer from who's retired from Cordis, J&J later, and we designed the product for him and got it going. We now make the product here in Pennsylvania. It's called a Bashir endovascular catheter. It's very simple. There's no equipment. It's a simple catheter. It opens up the blood vessel, blood clot immediately, and you can deliver TPA through 6 little catheters, drug delivery catheters, and it's working extremely well. All the results, clinical results, seem to be the best, safest, and easiest to use and lowest cost. So we're feeling pretty good about that. Pulmonary embolism.
Very good. Yeah, I was impressed with this product as well. And there is obviously a tremendous need for developing products of this kind, because embolic and thrombotic disease, whether it's in arteries and veins, is one of the leading cause of death and morbidity that occurs with those type of complications. Well, Marv, you've been a dear friend and a partner in many different projects over several decades, and I truly enjoyed working with you. And I hope you will continue working, even though you are a terrible retiree, not quitting. But I think it's more fun for you than just sitting at home or playing golf or whatever.
Sure. And,
Yeah.
Zarko, I've always looked at you as being one of my best friends and colleagues in this field, and I've learned a lot from you in terms of grit and determination. You would never take no for an answer, and I relish our relationship and that of your lovely wife, and you welcome me in your home on many occasions, and they're very dear to me. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Best regards to your wife as well.
I shall.
Thank you. Bye.
And 3, 2, 1, we